Welcome to the deep dive.
Mm.
Today we're doing something a bit different, really interesting.
Yeah.
One of our listeners shared these incredibly detailed notes with us. It's all about their experience following the band Zero, and these related musical journeys up and down the West Coast.
Oh, wow. Like a travel diary.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
From July and October 2022. And our mission here really is to unpack it all. Not just the timeline, but what was behind it.
The why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That mix of loving the music, the personal side of it, and all those echoes of music history they found along the way.
It's fascinating that the source is like their own reflections, not a book or an article.
Totally. It gives us this unique window, right,
Yeah.
into what it felt like, what it meant to be there, visit those places.
Yeah, much more personal. So where does it start?
Okay, so the notes kind of break into two parts. First up is July 2022, Pacific Northwest, mainly the Eugene, Oregon area.
Right.
This seems like the end point of a trip following Zero and obviously the guitarist Steve Kimock through that region.
Okay, Zero and Kimock in the PNW.
Yeah.
Got it.
And this part of the trip, it takes this really interesting turn because it finishes up at Ken Kesey's farm.
The Ken Kesey. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the timing's interesting, like you picked up on.
Yeah.
It was right after a 3-night run of shows.
So like winding down from the concert energy, seeking something else.
Seems like it. Maybe a different kind of connection after all the live music.
Makes sense. And Kesey's farm. I mean, that's loaded with history, isn't it? The Grateful Dead connection, the whole counterculture thing.
Absolutely. The notes really touch on that long, intertwined history. They even mention that Halloween '91 radio broadcast
Yeah.
where Kesey read T.S. Eliot during the Dead's, space section.
Yeah.
And he talked about his son, Jed. Really moving stuff.
Right, Jed Kesey. Yeah, that really shows how deep those connections ran. Why do you think that link, Kesey and the Dead, still holds such fascination for people?
That's a good question. I mean, beyond just being around at the same time.
Well, the merry pranksters, the acid tests, that was all pretty foundational for the scene the Dead came out of, right?
Right. Definitely. They shared that spirit of experimentation, pushing boundaries musically, socially.
Artistically, yeah. And you mentioned Mountain Girl in the notes, Carolyn Adams.
Right.
She's like the living embodiment of that link, being with Kesey, then later with Jerry Garcia. It just shows how close-knit that whole world was.
Totally. So the listener describes getting to the farm near Pleasant Hill, close to the Mount Pisgah trailhead.
Okay.
And they paint this picture, red barn, fields, these low hills they called mountains compared to back home.
Mm-hmm.
And this feeling of arriving at the gates, almost picturing Neil Cassidy and the further bus pulling up.
Wow, you can really feel that history just standing there, I bet. What was the vibe? What emotions came up?
Well, they mentioned this specific moment of prayer and gratitude.
Prayer and gratitude. That's powerful.
Yeah, it sounds like more than just seeing a landmark, like
Yeah.
a real pilgrimage moment.
What prompted that, do you think? Connecting with the past, the cultural weight of the place, or something more personal, maybe?
It seems like a mix. The notes definitely highlight a personal connection to Kesey's writing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a Demon Box, the day after Superman died. And they mention having this youthful dream, wanting to be like Kesey, Kerouac, Robert Hunter.
Ha! Quite the lineup.
Right. And get this, they actually wrote to Kesey back in '93.
No way!
Yeah, and got back a signed copy of Kesey's Garage Sale.
That's amazing. So it wasn't just admiring from afar. There was a real connection there.
Exactly. It shows how much those writers, those figures, really captured their imagination.
It really speaks to how art can shape you, doesn't it? And reaching out like that, getting a response, that's pretty special. Active engagement.
For sure. And then, kind of poignantly, they write, "Nothing lasts forever." That visit, though meaningful, was brief.
A fleeting moment.
Right. Okay, so let's jump ahead. Mid-October 2022.
Okay, fast forward a few months.
Listeners flying over Colorado, heading back west. This time, the Bay Area and Sonoma County are the destinations.
Different trip, different focus, maybe.
Yeah, they call it a break, an adventure. And they use this Neil Young quote, "Reconnect the ancient way."
Ah, okay. Neil Young. That definitely signals something, maybe more musical this time.
I think so. And they mention having done other pilgrimages before, like to La Honda, Princeton Landing, places tied to Neil and Crazy Horse.
Right, the pissing plant, the wake for David Briggs. Yeah, there's a pattern there, isn't there? Seeking out these spots where the music happened. What's the draw?
Maybe feeling the energy of the place. It's like the land holds the music somehow.
Could be. So Bay Area, what's the main event?
There's Zero shows. Big anticipation there. especially because it was the 30th anniversary of their live album from the Great American Music Hall.
Oh, right. And they just released Nod again around then, too, didn't they?
Exactly. Those unreleased tracks from the same 92 shows.
So a lot of history swirling around.
Yeah, and the notes mention that awareness, too. Thinking about the band members who have passed: Martin Fierro, Judge Murphy, Nicky Hopkins, Vince Walnick.
Yeah. That adds a layer, doesn't it? It's not just celebrating the music now, but honoring everyone who was part of it. Connects you to that shared past.
Definitely. And then comes this classic Bay Area dilemma.
Uh-oh.
Zero, with Steve Kimock playing the Fillmore.
Legendary venue.
And Bob Weir playing the Warfield, same night, practically next door.
Oh, man. That's a tough call. What did they choose?
They went with Zero at the Fillmore. They described the Fillmore as feeling like a local family kind of place for Zero.
Yeah, I can see that. Even though it's iconic, for certain bands, it can feel like home turf. Like the Dead at the Warfield, maybe?
Right. They call the Fillmore a destination unto itself with all the gig posters everywhere. It just has that atmosphere.
For sure. It breeds history.
And the listener had history there, too.
Mm.
They saw Steve Kimock Band, SKB, back in May 2005, an all-request show.
Oh, I remember hearing about those. Wild.
Yeah, they vividly recall requesting songs Point of No Return, Cowboy, Golden Road, even No Woman, No Cry, and the band actually playing them.
That's the dream, right? Direct connection, being part of the set list almost, creates a special energy.
Totally. And they remember Martin Fierro was at that 2005 show.
Oh, wow.
Which apparently really ramped up the anticipation for this 2022 show, hoping his daughter Jessica might sing.
Oh, right. Jessica Fierro. Yeah, that makes the connection even stronger, seeing the next generation carry it on, especially after seeing Martin there before. Powerful stuff.
So, leading up to this Fillmore show, the listeners got this internal wish list going.
Of course. We all do that.
Songs like Roll Me Over, Horses.
Yeah.
Hoping for guests, maybe Robert Hunter's voice piped in, or Bobby Vega, Liam Hanrahan, Chip Rowland, maybe Pete Sears on bass.
Dreaming big.
And they'd been listening hard to Not. Again, that new release. Noting the connection to Dan Healy, the Dead sound man.
Getting into the Sonics.
Yeah, and just hoping for this transcendent experience, this Nirvana.
High expectations, but understandable given the venue, the anniversary, the history. What was it about Not, again, specifically, that built that up?
I think just hearing those unheard tracks from a classic era, maybe the energy captured there, that kind of raw, live feel Healy was known for.
Right, that immediacy and that internal monologue, the hopes, the song lists. It really shows how deep the connection goes, doesn't it? Wanting Nirvana that speaks volumes about what live music can be, almost spiritual.
Definitely. Then they set the scene inside the Fillmore. They spot Charlie Miller, Dr. Bob, Susan Weiland.
Ah, the silent heroes, as the notes call them. The tapers, the photographers, the documentarians.
Exactly. And the listener mentions wanting to be up close, near the stage. That familiar feeling of community, seeing faces from other shows.
Yeah, that tribe feeling. It's not just the band, it's the whole ecosystem, right? The familiar faces, the shared experience.
Totally. And they list some favorite Zero Tunes instrumentals, the Hunter Lyrics ones, and that excitement about potential covers.
Always a bonus.
Like they'd seen Zero do Morning Dew unexpectedly at the Mystic Theater before, or Stella Blue, Crazy Fingers at other times.
Wow, okay. So you never quite knew what might happen. Keeps you coming back, that element of surprise.
For sure. Now, here's where it gets a bit philosophical.
Ooh, okay.
The notes dive into this connection between the band name Zero and nothing, and not again.
Right.
This idea that Zero, despite the name, somehow embodies everything. They even draw parallels to Eastern philosophy, the Heart Sutra.
Interesting. Zero is everything. That paradox.
Yeah. And then they throw in this funny aside like, I'm exhausted but so excited.
Relatable. But that philosophical angle, what do you think draws them to that interpretation?
Maybe it suggests the music operates on a deeper level for them. It's not just notes and rhythms, but it's tapping into these bigger ideas about, like, existence, paradox, that nothing contains everything. Ideas pretty profound.
It really adds another layer to the appreciation, doesn't it? Thinking about the music in those terms.
Definitely. Okay, moving on slightly. The Felton Music Hall show. This was after the Fillmore, maybe on the way home.
Smaller venue, right?
Yeah, more intimate. They talk about the encore. They got Sleepwalk, which is cool.
Classic instrumental.
But they were really, really hoping for Forever Is Nowhere.
Ah, the one that got away.
Kind of. They have this image of Steve's slide guitar and this whimsical thought, like, if the band had played Forever Is Nowhere, They might have just disappeared into the ferns outside the venue.
Yeah, that's wonderfully evocative. Shows the power of a specific song.
Totally. But they did catch some highlights there. Tangled Hangers opener, Golden Road, Closer. And they even got to see the sound check of Roll Me Over.
Yeah, cool. Seeing the sound check in a smaller place like that, that's special. Feels like you're getting an inside peek.
Right. What's the difference, do you think? Feeling that connection in a smaller place like Felton versus a big legendary room like the Fillmore.
Well, intimacy is key, isn't it? Physical closeness, maybe a different kind of energy exchange, less separation between audience and band. It feels more personal, maybe less eventized than a Fillmore show sometimes can.
Good point. Okay, back to the city for a bit.
Yeah.
The listener describes their San Francisco day. Seems like a proper deadhead pilgrimage.
Hitting the landmarks.
Oh yeah, Haight-Ashbury, 710 Ashbury, Kezar Stadium, checking out the Great American Music Hall from the outside, the Warfield,
Covering the bases.
the Golden Gate, Ocean Beach too. But clearly, the Fillmore was the main event. The cat's meow, as they put it.
Love that.
And they had this great encounter in line for the Fillmore. Met someone named Janice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Janice apparently shared this story about seeing KVSM, Kimock, Vega, Sears, Molo play a private show way up on the Eel River.
Wow. That's deep cut history.
Right, and Janice remembered them playing Point of No Return there. And get this, Janice was apparently one of the people who gifted Steve Kimock his famous guitar, the Cripes.
No way, seriously. Talk about connecting with history, those chance encounters, sharing stories. That's such a huge part of the whole scene, isn't it? It reinforces that community feeling.
Totally. It's like uncovering layers of undocumented history right there in the queue.
Amazing. So inside the Fillmore for the actual show.
Right. They bump into Dennis McNally, Zero's publicist, have a quick chat, and then the music starts. That opening, Chance in a Million, going straight into the coda from Layla.
Whoa. Okay, that's a statement opener.
Yeah. And the listener actually predicted the next song, theme from Nancy Germany, just by seeing where Skeeve put his capo.
Huh. That's some serious chemicology.
Right. Said it brought back memories of the San Geronimo Valley, the original Sweetwater. And the first set closed with another interesting pairing. David Bowie's Space Oddity into Greg's Eggs.
Space Oddity, wild. Those unexpected choices, those segues. That's where the magic happens sometimes, right?
Absolutely. Predicting the song from the capo, that just shows intense focus and familiarity.
Keep listening. Okay, second set.
Kicked off with Cole's Law, then came Horses, but done in this, like, reggae style.
Horses, reggae. Okay, didn't see that coming.
Neither did they. Then Jessica Fierro came out.
Martin's daughter.
Yeah, she sang Spoken For. And the listener noticed the women behind them getting really emotional. Turns out they knew Jessica since she was born and knew her family. Connections to Judge Murphy, too.
Wow. That adds so much weight to the performance, doesn't it? Seeing those personal histories intersect right there in the crowd. People who saw Cipollina with the band, people who knew Judge.
Exactly. The notes mention that, too. Seeing fans who remember John Cipollina playing with Zero way back. It's like witnessing this living history, this community across generations.
It really underscores that family feeling they mentioned earlier. It's more than just a band and audience.
Definitely. And then another family moment. Miles Kimock joined his dad, Steve, on stage.
Oh, cool.
Played on Baby Baby and Home on the Range. The listener saw it as Steve being really generous, showcasing his son.
Yeah, those moments are always special, seeing that dynamic. And the encore.
Morning Dew.
Classic. Powerful choice.
Yeah, and the listener describes this feeling in the room like an unspoken understanding, a shared emotion during the song.
I can picture that. Morning Dew has that effect, doesn't it? Especially in a place like the Fillmore. That shared history, everyone knowing the weight of the song.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so after the Fillmore, the journey shifts again. Sonoma County.
Right, north of 8.
Listener drove straight through SF to Petaluma. Focus was still on the upcoming Zero shows there. But they discovered something else about Petaluma.
What's that?
It's where Ramrod, the legendary Grateful Dead roadie, lived and passed away.
Oh, wow. Lawrence Shurtleff. Yeah.
So they made it a point to try and find his old place, his homestead. And they remembered Ramrod's son, Rudson, who apparently has ties to SKB.
Right. Rudson Shurtleff, another connection. So even while following Zero, that Grateful Dead history keeps weaving in. Why seek out Ramrod's place, you think?
Again, maybe just connecting with the roots. Ramrod was such a key figure behind the scenes for the Dead. And the listener had personal memories of Rudson. It just ties it all together.
Makes sense. Part of the fabric of that whole world.
But the weather up there was nuts. Historic atmospheric rivers, the notes say.
Oh yeah, I remember that period. Crazy rain.
They were worried about getting stranded, but still pushed on. Went exploring in Sebastopol,
Looking for.
the Community Cultural Center. But more importantly, this place called Studio E.
Studio E. What's the significance?
Apparently it's where Steve Kimock lived for a while and jammed. With Vince Welnick's Missing Man formation, with Zero,
Mm.
it's where KVHW premiered.
Whoa, okay, so a real creative hub back in the day.
Yeah, the listener found old shows on YouTube from there, an interview with Steve before he joined the other ones. Described it as very off-grid.
Finding those kinds of spots, the unglamorous, off-grid places where the real work happened,
Huh.
that's some duck-level fandom. It represents that origin point, right? Where the
Right.
magic was brewed.
Exactly. And the exploration continued. Wandering back roads, still trying to find Ramrod's house, looking for Greg Anton's old ranch in Jewel, the San Geronimo Valley Community Center.
Even though they hadn't been to shows there.
Right. Seems like just seeing the places held meaning, like trying to soak up the history, the spirit of the music associated with those spots.
That pilgrimage aspect again, connecting with the geography of the sound.
And then the Zero Ranch.
Ah, the mythical Zero Ranch.
They found it past Lagunitas. Gates were chain locked, naturally.
I'm sure the best.
Yeah, they respected that, didn't trespass. But they could see where the barn used to be. The barn was apparently legendary for jam sessions, according to Alan Trist's liner notes.
Right, you hear stories about that barn.
The listener seems fascinated by it. Dreams of having a similar space someday, or maybe writing a book about the ranch. For now, relying on, like, Blakesburg and Minkin photos, old fan stories.
That missing barn. It's become this symbol, hasn't it? Of that creative incubator, those legendary jams. You can see why it captures the imagination. It's a tangible link to that inner circle.
Totally. So finally, the trip culminates back in Petaluma at the Mystic Theater shows, listening to sound checks from outside, hoping for a chance encounter.
The classic pre-show ritual.
Getting there early paid off, though. Front row spots. And they got those memorable encores, Forever Is Nowhere, finally.
Redemption.
And Morning Dew again. And they make a point to say, you know, Zero isn't a dead cover band, despite all these connections, echoing Robert Hunter's view on their unique sound.
Important distinction. They have their own thing, deeply intertwined but distinct.
Yeah. And the listener concludes with this thought about continuing to chase that sound and carrying their own creative stuff forward with zero gratitude.
Zero gratitude. That phrase again, it's intriguing, isn't it? What do you make of it?
It feels fundamental.
Yes.
Not just saying thanks, but an appreciation that's woven into the fabric of things. Maybe it suggests this pursuit, this connection, is just part of who they are now. Less about seeking something outside, more about an internal drive, a gratitude that just is.
Yeah, I like that. A deep, inherent sense of appreciation born from the whole experience.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I mean, what a journey we've followed. From Oregon and Kesey's Farm, down to the Bay Area buzz, the Fillmore magic, then out into the rainy Sonoma Hills chasing ghosts and sound checks.
It really highlights how interconnected it all is, doesn't it? The music leads to the history leads to the places spark personal reflection, you meet people. It all flows together.
It absolutely does. This listener story shows how loving music can just open up these pathways to exploring history, making connections, having these really profound experiences in unexpected corners.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
It kind of leaves you wondering, what are your own musical pilgrimages? You know, what artists, what places hold that kind of pull for you?
And what might you discover if you actually follow that pull? What unexpected things might surface?
Right. And maybe your own experiences, your own notes scribbled down somewhere could end up being meaningful stories for someone else down the line.
A fascinating thought. Well, huge thanks to the listener for sharing such a rich and personal journey with us. It's been quite the ride.